Evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Facebook live stream, our live training. And what a week it's been. So I thought what we'd do is we'd take an opportunity to have a leisurely stroll through some of the questions that have been coming in through the help desk and through all of our different social channels. So nothing too heavy tonight, nothing too taxing. It's going to be just answering your questions. And what I'll do actually is I'll start by showing you exactly sort of the ways that you can actually reach out to us and contact us, because a lot of you aren't aware, or you're new to the group. So obviously there's the sort of more traditional ways of contacting us. You've got our customer services desk, so this is really for you and your customers. You know, if they want to, if they need to speak to us, they can email in, or you can phone in. If you email in, expect to wait sort of a day or so before you get a response. If you need something a little bit more quicker, a bit more reactive than that, then dial in on that 033 number there. When you dial in, you'll get to the switchboard and it will ask you whether you want to speak to the 𝗲𝗁 team or the traditional team. So just move your way through on that. It also asks you if you want to speak to sales or technical. So a couple of button presses on your keypad and it will get you through to the correct department. And incidentally, that's just in next door. So our customer service is just in next door to this room here. If you want to, if you've got any questions and you need some immediate assistance, you can always come in through our customer support. We've also got our YouTube channel. So if you need a bit more of me, which I mean, who doesn't, get yourself over to our YouTube page where all of the videos and all of the live streams and that, it all goes up, and we try and segregate it and order it into different playlists. So whatever video you want to watch there's always the opportunity to comment on the videos, and if you pop a comment in, we trawl through it on a sort of twice a weekly basis. So you shouldn't have to wait too long if you got an answer, need an answer to your question, or indeed if you just want to pass comment, or even if you want to suggest what sort of training or stuff that you want to see from us. So YouTube's always a good one. We've then got our social channels. So if you're on LinkedIn, you can follow us on LinkedIn. We've also got our Twitter page, so @DraytonHeating. That's our Twitter page. So you can pop a comment on there, and obviously you're already on the Facebook, and that's all also linked to our Instagram. So we post reels and stuff like that on our Instagram page. So there's plenty of ways of reaching out to us if you want to contact us. Any one of those channels, they're all monitored. So you know, however you want to get into us, you can do. So let's start with some questions that have come in. So let's a couple of you have commented on the promo video that I put out. Here's one from Thomas and Andrew. So this is relating to 𝗲𝗁. So when is domestic hot water open therm control update coming, please? And Andrews is the same sort of ilk. How can we set the ability to change the maximum set temperature? So this is relating to 𝗲𝗁. So connecting 𝗲𝗁 with OpenTherm. So that's what the OpenTherm module in the back is. Now, I had a chat with our product manager today for 𝗲𝗁, and they're expecting the update to be autumn of this year, autumn 2024. So normally we tend to launch stuff before heating season, which sort of kicks off in September for us. So it's looking like it's going to be coming in a few months' time. In the meantime, if you need to have an open therm control, you can use the new Digistat. So you can use either this one with the 2290M. That's the mains power one. That's the 4-wire thermostat, but that supports open therm, as does the single channel wireless Digistat. So that's also got an open therm connection on there. So there's a couple of alternatives, and with these you can go in and you can change the temperature. We were quite early in our development with open therm, and the standard has sort of evolved, as you would expect, over time. So our implementation of it at the moment. So you absolutely can connect 𝗿𝗏𝘁𝗲, but it's quite a crude control at the moment, and that's why I think it was Andrew that was asking about the OT control, ability to set the maximum CH temperature. At the moment, that's not in the app. So if you connect up, it will just go to what the maximum that the boiler will accept, which obviously is not ideal, particularly in these days where we're trying to, reduce our flow temperatures. So to answer both of those, really, it's looking like it's going to be before heating season this year, so around about August sort of time. So thanks for your question, Thomas and Andrew, and it's always good to get questions coming in, and hopefully that answers that question. So it's really a question of watch this space. Let's see what else we've got here. Another question. This looks like it might have come in on Twitter, I would think, at Drayton Heating. Why can't they be as simple as the Randall 103? Well, there's a question. So just in case we wanted to, now that Randall 103 that they've got there looks quite new. I think we're probably more familiar with them looking like this, a little bit yellowed. So why is everything not as simple as the Randall 103? Well, the way the Randall 103 is, it's got this mechanical dial in the middle that ticks around, and then you've got these tappets that you set your on and off temperatures for your heating and hot water. Now, this particular one, the vintage on this is July 77, so it even predates me. So the reason, well, there's a few reasons why things aren't as simple as that. They certainly can be, and if we pop over to if we have a look in our catalogue, our Drayton catalogue, we do actually have a control as simple as the Randall 103. The Randall 103 certainly is a 2-channel, and they were usually used on gravity systems where you didn't have any hot water, didn't have any independent control of heating and hot water. You could have hot water on its own, so in the summer you weren't obliged to run your heating, but if you wanted your heating on, you had to have hot water. So there is a current product, there is a current offer that matches that from Drayton, and it's the SM range. So you can see there's a single and a 2-channel version. Highly unlikely, I would say, that you will be using the single-channel version, because they tend to be, they're not going to be Boiler Plus compliant. That's the real answer to that. You know now that as part of Part L of the building regs, as well as having mandatory time and temperature control, you've also got to comply with one of the four stipulations of Boiler Plus, and so it's load compensation, smart control, flue gas heat recovery, or weather compensation. You're obliged to comply with at least one of those with Boiler Plus. So it's highly unlikely unless you've got flue gas heat recovery on your boiler, or you're going to stick a sensor on the north face of your building for weather compensation. It's highly unlikely that you can't really use the SMs unless you're going to pair it with a more complex thermostat. But for the 2-channel, you absolutely can use it. But it has been somewhat superseded by the LP. So here's the SM. I'll give you a close up on that, and you can see it's quite similar to the Randall, in so much as you've got your tappets that you turn. So on here you move your tappets around. This happens to be the single-channel version, but it's exactly the same. So they're 24 hours. So you're setting for the day period. You haven't got the capability to set different times for different days of the week. This is very much 24 hours, and it's 2 on and 2 off. So 1 and 3 are your ons, 2 and 4 are your offs, in much the same way that A and C and B and D were for the Randall. So there is an offer from Drayton that gives you mechanical control, but like I say, especially for a combi boiler, you're going to struggle to be able to fit this and be compliant with the requirements of Boiler Plus. But it is there, and it is available. Has been somewhat superseded by the LP. Now, this thing I was talking about before about pumps and gravity. Now, it's highly likely, particularly in July 77 when that Randall was manufactured, or I don't know if that's actually manufactured or when that's the warranty expires, but either way, gravity system, so it's stored hot water, no zone valves, no mid-position valve or anything. You've just got a pump on the system to circulate it around the central heating side, and that's really all the heating side is doing. Is it's running it's running the pump. The hot water side is a direct feed straight to the switch live of your boiler to fire the boiler up, and that's exactly the same with these. And you've got the capability to stick them into pumped and gravity mode, so you should be able to see there where that little red flag is on the LP. You've got the P side and the G side. This is actually set up in gravity mode, so all that's doing is it's tying the two channels together. And we've got the same arrangement on the back of the SMs, but these are actually defaulted to gravity, so you're more likely to use these on a gravity system, and that's why it's got the thing there saying remove the link if fitted to a pumped system. So we can have controls as simple as the Randall 103, but it's compliance that's sort of driving it away from that. Most installers now are looking for compliance for Boiler Plus to be through the controls, and that just by its very nature makes them more complex. But there's nothing stopping you pairing an SM with, say, a Digistat Plus or the new Digistat. Then you'll be able to. You would fulfil the requirements of Boiler Plus. Right. Let's have a look at the next question, which is. So this is talking about the latest generation of the new Digistat. Well, we can't really call it the new Digistat now because it's been out so long. It's not really new anymore. So you can sort of view this as like possibly the third generation of the Digistat. Now, hopefully, a lot of you have had a chance to have a play with one of these and know what they're all about. So the question is coming in: do you have so the question is, can the new Digistat, or as we're calling it now, just the Digistat, but this version, can it replace a standard dial thermostat? So I guess what they're talking about, they haven't been terribly clear, but I guess they're talking about something like this. So this is our RTS range. Now there's a few of these in the range. This happens to be the Combistat, but which is the bimetal version, but we do a range of 2 and 3 wire variants. So to answer the question, can the Digistat replace a standard dial stat? The answer is yes, but it really comes down to which one. So the one that will do everything is this, the 2290B. So this is the version that is wired, but it's got the batteries in. So the batteries are running the screen, so they're actually running the control. And that means because we're not having to pull power from a fuse spur or anything in order to drive the display, it means you don't need to have a neutral, which means that this is a 2-wire thermostat. So it requires a live in and a live out. Now, the Combistat, which is a bimetal thermostat, which is sort of what the oldest type of technology, really, where you've got essentially a piece of metal that bends as a function of temperature change to make and break the contact. So not terribly efficient, definitely moving away from bimetal towards digital and microprocessor controlled thermostats. But at the very least, even the most basic type of technology, it has to have a live in and it has to have a live out. Because remember, all these things really they are a switch that acts as a function of temperature. So if you call for heat, switch is made. If it becomes satisfied or you turn it down, the switch breaks. So we've got to have that live in and live out. You're always going to have that. It doesn't matter which thermostat, whether it's ours or anybody's. At the very least, you're always going to have those 2 wires. What you might not have there is a neutral, and that's why with the 2290B, the battery one, the one that doesn't require any sort of potential difference to run the control, this will take your live in and your live out. So the 2290B is excellent to have as van stock, because it means whatever you come up against, you're always going to be able to fit this in its place. Now, the thing with this is, obviously, this is a programmable digital thermostat, so it's doing time and temperature. The RTS was only doing temperature, but there's nothing stopping you putting this into manual mode. So you can go in to the settings. So hold the button down, go into your user settings and into mode, and you can just change the auto, which means it's following the clock, to the manual setting. And once you've done that and you come back out onto your normal screen, this is now not looking at the clock at all. So whatever temperature you set on the as your set point, that is going to remain until you make a subsequent change. So if you, just because it's a programmable thermostat, doesn't need to be used as a timer. You can use it just as a standard thermostat. Now, what I would say about that is, if you know what we're trying to do here with all of these controls, is we're trying to be as efficient as we can be with the fuel that we're using. So the proven most efficient way of controlling a heating system is to use a schedule, where if you're not using the room, or certainly from a conventional method of heating, so if we're talking about, you know, gas boilers and that, if you're not heating, you know, if you're not occupying a room, doesn't necessarily need to go off, so you don't need to have a massive differential in temperature, but certainly setting it back from maybe, you know, an ambient temperature of 20 degrees back to 16 is proven to be the most efficient way of running a heating system. So we really want to be encouraging customers to use the schedules, you know, identify their life, you know, what their lifestyle is like, and set that accordingly. But if they want it in manual mode, if they want the ability to just go over and call for heat when they want it, even though it's a programmable thermostat, you can still pop it into manual mode, and then it will just work as a straightforward up and down thermostat. So the 2290B, you can fit it anywhere. Now, if you happen to have one of these which is wired as a 3-wire, so that's your live in, your live out, and your neutral, which you can do that with the 𝗵𝗲_𝘁𝗶𝗴. And if you have the standard RTS one that comes in a lot of the control packs, that will be a 3-wire thermostat. You can fit, instead of the 2290B, I mean, you absolutely can fit the 2290B, but you'd probably be better off fitting the 2290M, because that means that you don't need to have batteries. So exactly the same interface. As far as the customer's concerned, they won't notice any difference in terms of how to program it. The only difference is that instead of having a couple of AA batteries in there to run it, we've got a main supply, or we've got that neutral, which is actually used to run the display. So this is called a 4-wire thermostat. Doesn't mean you have to have 4 wires. You can have 3 wires and just split your neutral off. So split your live off. So your live that's coming in, that's going to be switched, the permanent side of that, you can also spur off of that and just use it to run the control. You've got the neutral there, which is all important if you're using the 2290M. And then you've got your switch live that goes back to the boiler. Now, if you've got the neutral there, you can also consider going wireless. So instead of fitting or wiring the control there, you wire the receiver, and then that gives you the flexibility to locate the thermostat part anywhere in the property, up to about, I think it's something like 30 odd meters is the range you've got on that. So that's worth considering if you've got the neutral there, but you absolutely need to have the neutral there, because we've got to run the receiver. You don't get a battery version of the receiver, because the batteries wouldn't last 2 minutes. Now, if you've got a customer that's considering upgrading, so say if they've got this sort of arrangement now where they've got, put it right this way, so that we've got the heating is, so we've got the timing element from the LP being done for your heating here. You've got the temperature bit, and then that will go off to, say, your motorized valves. Let's consider if it's like an S-plan or a Y-plan system. So hot water side is using your cylinder stat. maybe it's a strap around if it's a vented cylinder, or if it's unvented, you'll be wiring to the stat that's built into it. Now, if you want to give your customer some immediate load compensation and smart control, there's nothing stopping you taking the thermostat away and fitting either the receiver like that, if you want to go wireless, or wiring directly into something like the 2290M or the 2290B. There's nothing stopping you doing that, and that's a perfectly viable solution. But we now have, as part of the range, the 2-channel version of which is the RF902. Let me grab that box so you can see that. So the RF902. So you get exactly the same wireless thermostat in there, but you now get this receiver here, which has got 2 channels on it, and this is the receiver that you get in the box. So you can have 1 channel for central heating, as you would expect. The other channel you can use for either hot water, or if you're zoning a combi boiler, you can pair another wireless thermostat to it. But this is really good for giving your customer some smart control capability, because what you're doing is you're not replacing the existing thermostat now, you are replacing the timer. So out goes the LP. These all sit on the same, they all use the same backplates, the industry standard 6-pin backplate. Out goes the LP, which is only doing timing. In goes the receiver from the RF902. And then when you set it up, you will bind the thermostat to your heating channel to start with, and then it will ask you, as part of the commissioning process, do you want to control hot water as well? You click yes to that, and then you control both your heating and your hot water from the remote wireless thermostat. So that's sitting where the LP was. The hot water side is still utilizing either, say, a HTS3, which would be a cylinder thermostat that would strap around a vented cylinder, or if it's an unvented cylinder, you'll be using whatever's built into it. So we're not making any change to the hot water, but what we're immediately doing is we are giving the customer not only the capability to, sit in their armchair and do the programming. These have also got Bluetooth connectivity, so you can use the WiSER app. So if you want to take the legwork out of setting your schedules using the plus and minus and the confirm button, you can set up the Bluetooth link to the WiSER Home app and set your schedules accordingly. But also, you're doing both heating and hot water. You're not stuck in an airing cupboard, trying to decipher what's on the screen. You can do this from the comfort of your armchair, or indeed using the WiSER Home app. So really, really good way of being able to upgrade your customer's existing controls for, say, an S-plan or a Y-plan system without any sort of invasive wiring, any sort of change of backplates. Your timer comes off, this goes on. If you've got a wired thermostat, if you've got one of these, because if you had an LP just doing the timing, you're going to have something doing your temperature. This would need to be linked out, but it's a simple case of just linking the 2 lives together, either in the control itself or preferably at the wiring center, because that means that the old dial thermostat can be removed. And then this goes in where the LP is, and you've got it's then just a question of going through the button pressing exercise to link them up, set them up for hot water, and do your scheduling either via the onboard interface or using the WiSER Home app. Right, so hopefully that's answered that question. Who was that from? I think that was, yes, that was anonymous, so I can't credit whoever that was. But hopefully that's answered your question on that. And the next thing that we're going to look at is the next question we've got here is about, it's sort of, it's actually a question that's come from the WiSER. So we've got 2 YouTube channels. We've got Drayton Home, which is like the consumer channel, which is talking about WiSER. And then we've got Drayton Heating, which is the more trade side. So this is actually a question that's come in on the Drayton Home channel. And it's basically saying about, it's asking about adapters for WiSER, you know, and do we do different adapters to suit different types of valve bodies? Now, most manufacturers now subscribe to the M30 by 1.5 thread standard. So what that means is the thread at the top of the valve body. So this thread here, this thread convention is 30 millimeters, so diameter of 30 millimeters. So that's what the M30 bit. So it's a metric thread. It's 30 millimeters in diameter, and by 1.5 is the pitch. So the difference between, or the distance between each thread is 1.5. So that's pretty much an industry standard, and that is what our TRV4. That's so the ring inside there. That's the M30 by 1.5, and also the adapter rings for 𝗿𝗍𝗳, which is where this question's come from. But actually, I'm going to sort of broaden it out to do a little bit more on sort of TRV identification and understanding where you can get different size adapters if you can, and also the reasons why you might not necessarily want to. So we can start with a bit of a history lesson as to the different types of TRVs that we've had. So coming in at its oldest is the Drayton TRV1. So this has got to be getting on, I would say, for at least 50 years old. And if you've got these, you'll know about it because they're huge. I mean, if we put one next to a TRV4, you can see the size difference is quite considerable. This happens to be one of the rarer ones that's got the gold cap. This normally is silver, but it's what I could grab from in next door. But it really is a chunky piece. So if you've got TRV1s, like I say, it's got to be getting on for, it's got to be over 50 years. I mean, the TRV4's been out for 30 years in its current, in its current lineup. So these have got to be at least 50 years old. But they are a chunky lump. They've got a huge valve body that goes on. We haven't actually got any valve bodies left for these now, but you get this big valve body that sits on the bottom, and there was sort of no sort of industry standard with the thread convention there. So if you've got TRV1s, you're not going to be adapting them to fit 𝗿𝗍𝗳. I've not come across an adapter that allows you to fit a 𝗿𝗍𝗳 head, and also it comes back to the question: if you're fitting a super smart, intelligent radiator valve onto a valve body that's 50 years old, is that going to impact on its efficiency? And so with these, if you've got TRV1s and you want to upgrade with 𝗿𝗍𝗳, either don't have individual room control and just control the airspace using a room stat, assuming that these are still working, or you'll be swapping out the valve bodies. So that's the Drayton TRV1. Like I say, it's got to be around sort of 50 odd years old. So that was then replaced by this. This is the TRV2. Now, the way that you identify the TRV2 is it's quite small compared to its predecessor. It's tiny, and even by today's standards of the TRV4, it's quite a small unit. But so this is the TRV4. It goes from this is the TRV2. This goes from frost position up to position 8. Now, this is the only TRV that we've ever had go up to position 8. So if yours goes up to 8, it's a TRV2. Again, it's the different valve body standard to what we've got these days. So if you're using TRV2, you're going to need to swap out the valve body. So that's TRV2. We then come into slightly more modern with the TRV3. Now, the way that you identify TRV3 is the sort of black gills, the grill that you've got around the bottom. So it also clicks when you turn it, but the easily recognizable bit is the three black fins that you get at the bottom of the skirt there. So if you've got a TRV3, we actually do a conversion head for that. So you can get a TRV3 to TRV4 conversion head. So the standard here, this is an M27 by 1. So remember the way the threads work. The M just denotes it as being a metric thread, so it's in millimeters. Industry standard now is M30. This was an M27, so it's a smaller locking ring. You're never going to get that to fit on to there because it's 3 millimeters short in diameter, and the thread convention is by 1. So it's a finer pitch rather than having 1.5 millimeters between the peaks of each thread. It's only 1 millimeter. Now, like I say, if you've got TRV3s and one breaks off or it stops working, you can get a TRV4. It's called a 𝗵𝗲𝘁𝗶𝗴. This isn't it. This is just a standard TRV4, but it's a TRV4 that just has the M27/1 locking ring. So that's something you can get if you to save you draining down. Now, in terms of 𝗲𝗁, the 𝗲𝗁 adapters that you get, we only do an M30/1.5. So we only do an adapter that suits the current lineup. But that's not to say that you can't get them. And if you head over to the 𝗲𝗁 website, there is a document on there that gives you lots of different conversion heads available, or conversion adapters. They're not available directly from us. You will be buying them from a third party. So we can't really vouch for whether they work, but sort of anecdotally, they appear to. And I'm hearing that we do get reasonable success with the adapters. But what I would say is, if in doubt, if you've got something that doesn't respect the current M30/1.5 thread convention on the valve body, or indeed the Danfoss RA, which we've got that black adapter, the big chunky black adapter that goes onto the Danfoss RAs, if it doesn't fit that, chances are it's an old valve body, because most manufacturers now have subscribed to this new standard. This has been out for us for about sort of 15 years, and actually longer than that, because the TRV4 has always had that standard, and that's just gone over. That's been out for about 25 to 30 years now. So this standard has been out. The chances are, if it's not that thread pitch or diameter, it's going to be an old valve body. In which case, if you're fitting a 𝗲𝗁 head to it, you need to be making sure the valve body is still functional. And the question is that the case after sort of 25 or 30 years? So I would say that there are adapters available. They're not available from us. You'll be hunting around on the internet for them. Anecdotally, they seem to work. The 𝗲𝗁 heads fit on and they control. But my question would be, are the valve bodies still working after that, after that time period? So that's essentially the evolution of the TRV. TRV1, like I say, got to be over 50 years old now. TRV4 is the current lineup. TRV3 identifying feature is the black grille. TRV2 is the smallest out of all of them, and it goes up to position 8. So that is how you can tell the difference between them. Right, well, I don't see any questions that have come in while I've been live. Just have a double check there. No, nothing's come in. So hopefully that's answered some of your questions. And I think I'll do this. This will become like a regular slot. Obviously, we'll still do the themed slots, depending on what products are trending or what you're asking. But I quite like this sort of format, which is a bit of a mashup from the different channels and from our customer services. So keep your questions coming in. If you want to see training on any particular product range, or there's something that you don't quite understand, stick it in the comments on any one of our socials, and I'll do my best to feature it in one of the next training sessions. So I'll be back in around about a month's time with another one of these, but it'll probably be, I'm not even sure what the content is going to be yet. I think it's probably actually going to be around the new Digistat. I'm still calling it the new Digistat, even though it's been out for 2 years now, but that's just, I can't sort of help myself. But there is a new one of these coming. There is a new Digistat coming, which is actually a wired version of the 2-channel. So I showed you the RF902, this one, the one that's got the receiver with the 2 channels. There's actually a wired version that's coming of that. So it'll look like exactly the same programming interface, exactly the same. It's just that you don't have to have the receiver. So more cost-effective option, and particularly useful for social housing or anywhere where you don't want the stat to be removable. You want it screwed down. So that's probably what my session in a month's time is going to be. Keep an eye out on the group for the stuff that Claire's doing. So she's doing a lot of thought leadership stuff now, expert panels, talking about where the heating industry is going. So there's some real good insight as to what's happening in the industry, and she tends to be able to get good guests on to talk about that. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you in about a month's time for another one. Thanks for joining me, guys. This will go up onto YouTube, so if you've missed anything, it'll be on the group, but it will also find its way onto YouTube. So if you missed it, don't worry. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next one.